Well, see, that's where, Bill, and I noticed this, when I was the chairman of civil rights, some of the things with the girls, they went into expediting positions. Now, I knew the expediter in our shop was a male, and he had unlimited overtime whenever the shop. Now, when these girls had it, and it happened to be a white girl, and I went to Everett Hawkins. He was for 9116 then, of course, I forget who, but, I said, Everett, they're discriminating against all the men. He says, don't start that word. They don't want to hear that word. And this is what made me angry, because I remember a black girl called up about changing her schedule or vacation or something. And the foreman says, I don't have time to talk about this shit. Well, they wanted to file this big suit. And it made me mad because you don't want to be divided, but they couldn't see what they were doing. We were in the same place they were. And when I got in the mill, most of the times the black men were the nicest because they knew what you had gone to. Mm-hmm. But the union, when you got to the union, you didn't find that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell us how you started work at Sparrows Point. Did you grow up in this area?
I worked at Westinghouse.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Cockeysville, and I was married and had 3 children. I divorced, and I went to work at Westinghouse in Cockeysville, and meanwhile then I remarried, and I got pregnant, and I thought, well, I've worked all my life, I'm going to stay home. Well, I just couldn't be a Susie homemaker. I just don't like that, you can tell. But I just didn't like that. I liked physical work. And a friend of mine, I moved to these old apartments in Essex across from Salvos. They're torn down. And one of my neighbors, her husband worked at the shipyard. And she said, my husband said they're hiring at Bethlehem Steel, the steel mill. Do you want to get in there? And I said, yes. And so we went down. It was in 1971, April of 1971. And I made less money at Bethlehem Steel on term work than I made at Westinghouse when I left there. But that's how I got started. And I'd get laid off and stuff, but it didn't bother me at that time because I was married. And then when my second husband and I broke up, I couldn't take these layoffs, so I transferred over to the steel side, and it was me and a lady, Mary Denny. She's deceased now. And she had to go back to work because she was single to get the benefits for her children. And when we went to the employment office, they said, the only place we have for you is the batteries. And we're thinking, car batteries. Well, what could be bad at the batteries? And they're saying, oh, they're terrible. And I can remember Mary and I, we signed up, we went to work, so we go to the steel side. Now, we had been on the finishing side all this time. And you know how the parking lots are. Well, when we got to the steel side, we parked, and we start walking. They said we had to go to the coke ovens. And we're walking and walking, we're saying to everybody, how do you get to the coke ovens? They said, right down, keep going down here, and we're walking. We said, they're giving us the runaround. They don't want women here. We didn't realize how far you had to walk. You had to walk. And I guess it was around 73. No, I went over there, I think 76. It was, anyways, around 78 or something before they had a bus that would pick you up and take you. But, it was a long walk. And I went into the labor gang. I went on the batteries. And it was the hardest work. They put me in the mud mill.
And what were the batteries?
The batteries were where they made the coke. And it was like, I guess coal comes, I don't know the form, how they do it, but they would put it in, they had a machine on top that would go over and would drop this coal, I guess, down into the holes, and that would bake for so long. And then they had like one machine on one side would be a pusher, and it would line up to the door. And at that time they had men that did the mudding. And then on the other side would be the catcher, and it would push that ram rod right on through. But I worked in the mud mill, and it was, you would go out and you would clean these runs. When they would push that coke out, you would have to go with a wheelbarrow and a shovel and all, and load it in the wheelbarrow and take it back. And there was a big round thing, a prehistoric, big round that had a wheel that went like this, and water. And you threw this coke in there, and then you went down below and you got clay. You put clay in there, and it would mix it into a mud. And as it came into the mud, then I think you opened it like a little trail, and it would shoot out on the floor. And on 7 and 8 batteries, they had up to 12. I think it was, I worked 5 and 6, I think it was. But anyway, 7 and 8, people on 5 and 6 or 3 and 4 would have to make the mud for 7 and 8. I don't know why they didn't have a mud mill. But when I first went there, the guy said, here's your job. Well, I stuck my shovel in that mud, Bill, and I couldn't pull it out. The suction was holding it. And at the end of the day, I'd have a pile about that big on that shovel, because, I mean, it